top of the morning to ya, or afternoon or evening or what have you. I'm going to talk a little bit about a professor that I came into contact with a while back, a nice fellow named Dr. Tataryn. I met him through Integral Life, and he's a heavy Buddhist practitioner. He invited me to a week retreat with Lama Lodro. He's a Yukon Buddhist Lama who came down for a little while to Winnipeg. And anyways, he does medical psychology and emotional psychology. And he recently did a presentation at one of the Integral conferences, and it was regarding the different stages of cognition in correlation to the physiological brain structures, from reptilian brainstem to limbic system to neocortex. His is slightly different from Wilbur's system in that he's positing that these systems activate in correspondence to the different developmental stages, and a little slightly different from Wilbur's. So he's saying that at essentially infrared stages, you're essentially in your reptilian brainstem still, with some downward feedback from the emotional and the cognitive. And then when you get into red and amber, you're essentially in the emotional brain with some downward feedback from the cognitive brain. When you get into orange and green, you're in the rational neocortex, but you're oftentimes essentially cut off from your emotional limbic system and your reptilian brainstem. When you get into integral stages, although starting with late green, I think is what his model has, is that you're starting to get some feedback from the emotional system, but this flourishes in later green or later teal. You're really starting to get into the emotional brain. And then when you get into sort of indigo or coral in the spiral dynamic system, you're actually getting back into your reptilian brainstem, but you're maintaining your neocortex, so you're integrating downward. It's the involution, if you will, where you've gone up to your neocortex, now you're going back down, but you're maintaining what you've got. So you have your reasoning, rational mind, but there's kind of the starkness, the sort of in-your-faceness of the reptilian brainstem. And that's kind of, in his mind, what meditation does. It brings you into the moment of that kind of reptilian now. Like, what's happening if you're a reptile, right? It's almost instantaneous reactions that require life or death response. And he's arguing that meditation allows you to kind of reestablish that brain. You're reintegrating that brain back into your biopsychosocial self. So in his model, spirituality isn't so much esoteric in that there's subtle energies, which Wilbur's model posits. His is more physiologically oriented. I'm not so much. I don't know. I have these kind of felt sense experiences that suggest otherwise to me, that when I'm in deep contemplation, I feel like I do sort of radiate sort of energy outward. And so I don't know if I'm in agreement with this totally, but would like to hear you guys' thoughts. Is it explainable completely in a physiological sense? This makes it totally post-metaphysics. It's totally explainable this way in sort of a materialistic, rationalistic framework almost. Rationalism sort of stops in a sense even in this model, because you can't really rationalize the instinctual self so much, but it's still very much correlative with the reasoning paradigm, if you will, the logical paradigm. So what do you all think? Do you feel it can be totally explained away physiologically? Do you think there's no need for subtle energies? Let me hear from you.